And glad to have you back. It has been a long several days for you.
It has, and they're just getting started over there, and we have a lot to talk about.
Yes. So we're going to hear more from your accounts in just a little bit. First, we are continuing our coverage of the deadly flooding in the Texas Hill Country. As of this morning, state officials have now confirmed at least 120 deaths, and more than 170 people are still missing. A majority of those deaths are from Kerr County. And Jacob, as we just said, you spent the last couple of days there. What did you see?
I think that one of the takeaways for me in this case, but in almost every one of these big natural disasters that I ever go to, is on the one hand, the devastating loss of life and just the human impact, which is hard to put into words, but when you're there with people and you see the emotion of it and you try to appreciate the fact that this is a permanent change for them. It's not just a news story. And then on the other hand, the always impressive outpouring of support, the way that people show up. I mean, it's always the case, and especially true here, that people who, big sacrifices of time, of resources, of money, the people there on the ground will tell you the same thing.
Was there a common theme, talking with the public and the officials, first responders that you spoke with? Did you hear the same thing over and over?
I thought that maybe I would hear more about, how did this happen or who is to blame, because that's what you read sometimes. A lot of especially national news outlets talk a lot about that, but nobody was really talking about that.
Yes.
They just were
still shocked.
Focused. They were focused, on their mission too.
Yeah. Well, we're going to hear more of your stories coming up. But first, this morning, as the search and rescue efforts now stretch into the 7th day, can you believe it? We know so many families continue to deal with unimaginable grief following the deadly Hill Country floods.
Some of those families, as we know, are right here in our area. And Ugochi Uloka joins us live from the newsroom with a look at the victims from here who lost their lives in the floods. Ugochi, I think that's them right next to you.
Yeah, they are. Take a look at the faces of the lives lost in our area right now. We know, according to officials, that nearly 24 people from the Houston and surrounding areas died in the Hill Country floods. And here's a good look at all of the 23 faces, many children, the faces of children. If you take a look at your screen, one of them is this young woman, 21-year-old Reese Menchaca. She was a 2022 Caney Creek High School graduate, and she was among those swept away in last week's deadly Hill Country floods. Now, just yesterday, she was escorted back home to Montgomery County, and the community turned out to line the streets in her honor. You can see them there. Close family friends of hers say Reese was known for her bright spirit, her bold style, and her kind heart.
You always knew when Reese was in the building because she stood out, because she was exactly who she was.
She just was very loved by a lot of people.
Yeah, and in Reese's memory, family, friends launched a t-shirt fundraiser. You can see it there, called Forever Reese. They say that 100% of the proceeds are going to support her family. And coming up at 6, I'll tell you more about more local victims, sadly, of the Hill Country floods and how the community is rallying behind them. We'll send it back to you all in the studio.
Ugochi, thank you so much. And as journalists as well, we are so impacted by this. We've been covering it since it happened on the 4th of July. And Ugochi, obviously, very emotional there. She has a daughter around the same age. And as you say the numbers as journalists, that's one thing. But when we are seeing these photos and Ugochi's right there, understandably shaken up, just looking at these little children's faces, that grief for journalists as well does not go away. It's very hard to stay composed.
Yeah. God bless you, Ugochi, and everyone who's trying to process this. It is the faces.
It's happened to all of us. It really has.
I agree. In Hunt, people say that they only had minutes to escape the floodwaters.
And that includes Cody Villasack, who said he did everything he could to save his entire family. He said that he woke up to the sound of rain, as many people were telling us. And then when he went outside, he saw the rising water. He yelled to his parents that it was time to go. Within 20 minutes, water filled their entire home. As they made their way uphill, Cody said that he could hear the neighbors yelling for help.
It's a horrible feeling, because you wanted to help them and you didn't know what would happen to them, but you knew deep down if you tried going out there, then something would have happened to you as well.
When the water finally receded, Cody said, when they went home, that's when they were greeted with a miracle. Listen to this. Their dog had run off in the midst of the chaos, but was found alive inside a washing machine.
I had to break my window, and when I climbed through, I heard scratching and kind of like a whimper. So I turned my head around the corner and I saw him just floating there in the washer.
My goodness. Wow. Even though Cody's home was destroyed, he said that he and his family are so grateful to be alive, and that's the theme we're hearing from everyone.
Incredible stories of survival. In that same town is Kreider's Dance Hall. I was there. It's an institution in the Hill Country. And on the day that it turned 100 years old, when they were going to have a special century celebration, the music there stopped.
Yeah, I know it was exactly 2:58 when she called me, and it was all the way up to here. And I ran into the kitchen. I said, let's get out of here, because, man, it was coming fast.
Tracy Moore owns and runs the dance hall and rodeo that's been in her family for generations. Of course, it is forever changed. Many folks in the area say that Hunt is like ground zero for this catastrophe. Today, FEMA and the Small Business Administration will open a disaster recovery center at First Baptist in Kerrville.
Several local businesses are now combing through the debris and trying to clean up what's left. That includes the River Trail cottages that have been around for decades. Now, these row of cottages sit right next to the Guadalupe River. The property manager, Alex Cedillo, said that he never expected this.
Sometimes worry, well, you're next to a river. Will it ever get that high? And I would always tell them, no, it would take a flood that you just could not imagine. Boy, it's amazing that I ate my words.
Now the focus is on cleaning up the debris and rebuilding whatever they can. And later today, make sure to join us for the KHOU 11 and Tegna, Texas, as we host a special flood relief telethon. Our volunteers will be ready to take your calls for donations. That's happening again today from 4 to 7 p.m. And of course, thank you in advance for all of your help.